Thank you. So this is the stunning shift from telehealth to telehealth and telewellness. And happily, we have this sponsored today by Lumion, and I'm going to play a little video that they sent, and I'm going to also play it at the end. That way everyone will be able to hear it. But just for now, this is an introduction to Lumion, empowering people, and I have to say I was quite impressed with the company.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris and I'm one of the co-founders at Lumion. I'm really excited today to be supporting the Global Wellness Summit, a technology spotlight on telehealth and telewellbeing. It's a space I've actually been involved with for over a decade, having done a PhD in the area, worked with the National Health Service in the United Kingdom.
Oh, Susie, you're muted. Can you unmute, please?
I hit the unmute.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris and I'm one of the co-founders at Lumion. I'm really excited today to be supporting the Global Wellness Summit, a technology spotlight on telehealth and telewellbeing. It's a space I've actually been involved with for over a decade, having done a PhD in the area, having worked with the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, and actually appeared on British television with the work I've done in the space. Talked to conferences on this all over the world, so it's really exciting to see how it's moved on, particularly in the field of telewellness, which is a particularly important space for us.
Lumion helps employers and employees understand the data behind their well-being. Employers can truly understand what actually affects their staff and take a data-driven approach to well-being. This allows the employer to choose the interventions their staff really need. And today, all of us at Lumion are proud to be sponsoring the Wellness Sector Spotlight on the stunning shift to telehealth and telewellness.
Thank you, Chris. And I will hear a little bit more from you later, but this is an interesting approach that you have to helping in the workplace in a data-driven way. So I'm very impressed with what you're doing. So we're going to get started, and I have prepared a bunch of slides, and here's why. This was an area, telehealth, that I found was it was a huge area, and it was hard to get my arms around it. So I have been studying this for the last 5-6 days. I've been diving in. I've talked to people, some of whom are going to be on the call today, and I put together a presentation that I hope will be helpful. And it is going to be available afterwards. So I'm going to go very fast through some of the slides. You won't be able to, absorb all of it, but you can always go back. So just to give you a little idea of the breadth of this, I'm going to show you some slides from CB Insights. They're the ones, and they're a very good resource, that aggregate a lot of this. And you can see here, this is the rise of mobile healthcare. And you can see on the bottom right, they have telemedicine, remote doctors and health assistants, and so on. But there's on-demand house visits, on-demand mental health, etc. Ooh, and this is even larger. This is even just the mental health space. And if you'll look top right, it talks about telehealth, and it shows you all the companies that are in telehealth. But there's also sleep and meditation, digital therapeutics, and so on. And then the last slide, this is just wearables and remote patient monitoring market map. I mean, it's very overwhelming to me, probably to you also, but some of you are maybe more expert. So with all of this as sort of what I found, I thought I've got to go and get some definitions. What is telehealth? What is telewellness? What is telemedicine? And so I looked at Webster's Dictionary. I looked at Cambridge English. I looked at dictionary.com, and I have to tell you, The best definitions that made sense to me were from Wikipedia. So I'm going to share those with you right now. So Wikipedia, this is how they define telehealth. It's the distribution of health-related services and information through electronic information and telecommunication technologies. And then telemedicine, which is sometimes used as a synonym or is used more, and I'm trying to figure out how I can move my, anyway, it's to describe remote clinical services such as diagnostics and monitoring. And basically, it's a subset of telehealth. That's what I found out, that there's telehealth, which is the big umbrella, and then telemedicine is a subset. And then telecare is also defined in Wikipedia. It's the term for offering remote care of elderly and physically challenged people, providing the care and reassurance needed to allow them to remain living in their own homes. When I looked up telewellness, it is not in Wikipedia. So we'll talk about that as we go along. I'm hopeful that this might be somewhat helpful. Here you can see, this is some telehealth information from a financial point of view. Funding climbed higher, surpassing 4.2 billion. This is the what you can see here from quarter 2018 to quarter 1 2021. And you can see obviously things are moving up in telehealth in terms of funding and investment. This I thought was interesting. This is what telehealth discussion is among executives. And you can see in 2016, you know, very little talk, very little talk, very little talk. And then you see in 2020, COVID, all of a sudden, there is a lot of discussion. This is in boardrooms. And so you can see that obviously it's COVID that has given a lot of impetus to this discussion on telehealth and the other teles that we're going to talk about. I thought this was interesting. Actually, Josh, who's going to talk in a minute, sent me this slide. And these are deals that span 32 countries. And can you see on the right? I mean, I have to say this surprised me that so many of the deals were happening in the United States. I mean, I knew that, you know, US is sort of known for technology, but this was an overwhelming number to me. Then this morning, I got my World Economic Forum alert, and here is what they sent. Some of you might get this. It was this morning, June 15th. 100 startups join World Economic Forum's Technology Pioneers community in their 2021 cohort. And so they listed them all, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I wanted to see if, in fact, that also sort of mirrored the idea that there's a lot going on in the United States. So Africa had 6, the Asia Pacific had 22, and by the way, most of those were China and India, a few in Japan. Europe had 17, Latin America 4, MENA, the Middle East, 5 out of 6 of those were Israel. The other one, I think, was Dubai, and North America was 45. Again, a huge number. And by the way, there were like 3 or 4 from Canada, the rest from the US. So I guess what I'm learning is that there's a lot happening around the world, and a lot, especially in the US. I think it speaks to, and Nancy can help us with this, you know, we're doing our Global Wellness Summit in Tel Aviv, and looking at what's happening in technology. And also there'll be some more information about what's happening in the US in Tel Aviv. So I think that we're right on in that regard. As I learned, there are some big players, and I thought I would introduce them to you. This is from CB Insights. They said that there are 4 companies that are really in the telemedicine space. Now remember, that's the one that's more about diagnostics and medical. And so they called out Teladoc, GoodRx, Amwell, and Talkspace. So I thought I'm just going to grab a slide from each of them just to show them to you so you get a sense of them. So here is Teladoc. You might have heard of it, talking to a doctor. Millions of people Teladoc through their health insurance. This is GoodRx. I have used GoodRx. You find free coupons, you show the coupon to your pharmacist, and you save money. I have never figured out how this works, but it's just a magic. I go to the pharmacist and I show them a coupon, and oh, they read you the how much I pay, and it's a lot less. That's GoodRx. This is called Amwell. It's an online doctor, 24/7. See a doctor or therapist from home using your phone, tablet, or computer. That's a big one. And then this is Talkspace. This is online therapy with a licensed therapist. They have lots of therapists. You can get matched up right away. Then they also talked about 5 telehealth startups that they are pointing out as big ones to know about. So I thought, if you're on this call, you might want to know about them. Babylon, K-Health, Doctor on Demand, ZocDoc, and MD Live. Again, I'm going to just show you a glimpse of them. So here we go with Babylon, all-in-one personalized healthcare. Here is K-Health, telehealth for primary care and pediatrics. This is Doctor on Demand, total virtual care. I know about Doctor on Demand because sometimes I watch Dr. Phil and they advertise because I guess Dr. Phil's son is involved. So that's a one that apparently is getting a big thumbs up. And then ZocDoc, which is one I had heard of, maybe you have. There's thousands of providers and one app. And then MD Live, which is board certified doctors, licensed therapists. And then I wanted to just introduce you, it was Alexa Brew who suggested that I introduce you to Cerebral because they have done
You're in mute again.
Susie, are you able to unmute? Okay. There's some technical issues going on today. I don't know if it's storms all over the country. Susie, do you want to go out and come back in or just call in maybe for the audio?
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see. Now I have to go back and do the share screen again. Okay, and now I have to do one more thing. Okay. Oh, now I have to go very fast through everything. And we were at Cerebral. So Cerebral, expert help for your emotional health. They have had a great success. And interestingly enough, they had some prices in there, $7 a week for the first month, $33 a week, $23 a week. We're seeing those kinds of things where there's different options. And now I'm going to ask Josh Lukow, who is the founder and CEO of Solaviv, and he's also the chair of the GWI Digital Wellness Initiative. GWI is the Global Wellness Institute. And Josh, I've got 2 slides here that you sent me, and I want you to perhaps tell me a little bit about it. This is the first one.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you, Susie. It's a pleasure to be here with you and everyone else. So as you showed earlier, there's been a tremendous amount of deals being made and funding flowing through and flowing to the telehealth market. What dominates this market right now is, as you can see on the graph, telemedicine. This has certainly been impacted by COVID. So the fact that people have been discouraged to go to their physical facilities increased the need for telemedicine, but I think a lot of other individuals found it to be far more convenient. The data has already been showing an increase in telemedicine usage prior to COVID, but once that pandemic hit, everybody jumped into that service. So
and Josh,
again,
I see that wellness is on this chart, so that I guess is encouraging that it's starting to be visible. But thank you for this chart again. This is from Digital Health, and then there's another chart I wanted you to talk about. Tell me about these 4 companies because you felt that those were important to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing to point out is that there are a very large set of companies out there in the market, and they're all serving different needs of the market. Some overlap, but this was a nice, good cross-section of showing the diversity of these telehealth companies. There's a lot of deal making that is occurring. So Roe is approaching that $1 billion mark in terms of how much capital they've raised, but they are focused on men's and women's health, a subsection of healthcare that focuses on the nuances of the male body and the female body, for instance. Then you have a company like Heal that is trying to leverage the primary care physicians and making sure that people have access to those care physicians at any point in time, as well as what they're calling telepsychology services. So mental health services with your psychologists that are integrated with the physicians. Talkspace, you showed on an earlier slide. This company is growing very quickly, and it is focused on therapy, on telepsychology to a degree. But what it's trying to do is offer lifestyle solutions. So not just working on, say, cognitive problems, but also stress, anxiety, things that are commonplace that people are dealing with all the time. Lastly, I selected Maven because it illustrates, again, these subsectors that are being addressed. So in this case, they're looking at servicing mothers and families during the conception period, pregnancy, and then afterwards and during the postpartum.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you for aggregating these for us. And Josh heads up the digital health initiative, and so you're grappling with all of this, and we thank you for helping us aggregate some of this. Now I want to go to you, Susan O'Connor. She is the CEO of Prana Health Strategies, and she is a wellness coach. She's also the chair of the GWI Wellness Coaching Initiative. So I went to her and I said, okay, what is your understanding of telehealth, telemedicine, and telewellness? And Susan, you sent me this. Do you want to talk about it?
Well, thank you, Susie, and that was a wonderful overview. So this really builds off of what you nicely shared. And just to kind of orient this slide, if you look at kind of the arrow from the left to the right, that is the Travis illness to wellness continuum. And so the suggestion here was that, as Susie highlighted the definitions, you could consider these different types of technology platforms at different points of that continuum. And then as we define the different wellness pillars, they approach different dimensions of it. So Susie, as you pointed out, telemedicine being kind of a subset of telehealth and mostly focusing on chronic conditions and mostly in the physical health space. And as both you shared and Josh shared, is that it's basically healthcare online with the system. Telehealth tends to, and I think some of the examples that were shared were excellent because they include not only the physical dimension, but also the mental dimension, and tend to focus on some of those lifestyle preventable diseases. So it's not just the physician, your doctor, it's including therapists and many other modalities in a multidisciplinary team format. And what we're seeing now is that there are certified issues that are also being integrated into these telehealth platforms. I'll give you an example. But in telehealth, employers are actually playing a bigger role in terms of, especially now during COVID, as was highlighted, to be able to make sure that we're getting access to care in the best light possible, in addition to, private insurance and consumers. But I really wanted to add a new perspective. I'm hoping we can have some time to talk about it around what Susie had said. There is no Wikipedia definition for telewellness. I'm going to share a case study. It's from my personal experience, just looking from a business standpoint across the market on a kind of a benchmark. But here, the suggestion is what's unique about telewellness is that there's really a holistic well-being focus. And here's where not only do we have the physical and the mental connection, but we also have the social aspect. And these are community-driven platforms. And the science will tell us that there's evidence that when people are within community, they can actually heal faster as well. So Susie, do you mind going to the next one for me?
Yeah, because you have some great examples. So please.
This just kind of builds off of, what we shared before, and there's some similar examples of what we saw, but just to kind of highlight what the unique benefits are, because there's a fit for purpose, I think, for each of these technology platforms. And so telemedicine is really focusing on those chronic conditions with those high-risk patient interventions. And ultimately, it's a lower cost model, in terms of delivering care. There are some unique things, though. I mean, there are competencies where some of the healthcare professionals can have multicultural competencies. So there are some, broader access advantages to that. And you see the examples there, which were highlighted before. Telehealth is, what's unique about that is that it has more of a suggestion around prevention. So some of that is the diseases that it targets and focuses. Some of it is also the services, as I mentioned, that's provided. And here's where there's multi-generational access. So if we think about millennials, they may love the tech platform more in a preventative mode. And we see, lots of models that are coming out for that. And you see the examples there. The only one I'll highlight that's new here in the spirit of health and wellness coaches who are certified, being able to be matched with a consumer or a patient in a multidisciplinary standpoint is Prevention Group is an example of that. But with telewellness, what really is key here is that we have social well-being and we have better life satisfaction. And so the example I'm going to share and really highlight, because I think it's a global market leader, is Weight Watchers Wellness That Works, WW, I should say. So on the next slide, Susie, thank you so much. So many of you may know they rebranded themselves as Wellness That Works, which was so smart given their holistic focus and the market demand. Their platform has really dramatically expanded or been accelerated as a result of COVID. But they're over $1.4 billion in revenue. They're a global company, and they're basically a membership subscription model. But they have multiple different verticals to them. There's an online community connection. So it's actually like a social media feed through the app, which is fantastic. They have group workshops. They have about 100 people on each of those workshops. They're kind of every hour, every day, actually, and also virtual one-on-one coaching. So you can see that for their members, some of these different multimodal, deliveries could work better for them in terms of driving behavior change. But it's really that community connection that helps. And their core business model is across all the three areas of nutrition, movement, and mindset. And you can kind of see some key examples there. And the next slide just kind of visualizes it a little bit more. That Susie, you want to go to the next one, please?
Well, I didn't include the next one because I thought this one would, thank you. I'm just sort of shortening things, but Susan, this was very, very helpful. And, I remember, and you're a coach, and I remember something that Dr. Ken Palliative told me years ago, because I asked him, as I do many doctors, what's working, because there's a lot of things not working. The obesity rates are up. There's a lot of, things out there, but, we're not making a lot of progress. And Ken Pelletier said to me, coaching, that's works. Would you agree with that, Susan?
Yes, and it's in more demand more than ever now. Absolutely. Thank you, Susie.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting thing to notice. And I think that's why, this idea of coaching in addition to the telehealth and telemedicine can be really a win-win. Lisa, I asked Lisa Starr, she's a consultant for Win Business. She's also chair of the GWI Consulting Best Practices Initiative, to give us some examples. And she kind of put together a bunch of them. So, Lisa, just give us maybe a sentence or two about each of them. Of examples of what is happening now. And I asked her specifically for examples of some telewellness, if you want to use that term, and people making money. So, Lisa?
Got it. So hi, everyone. And as Susie said, I'm the task force co-chair of the Consultants Committee. We ourselves have been grounded in the last year, like everyone, and we have learned to use communication tools and collaboration tools to meet with clients. But I wanted to share a bit about what some of our clients are doing on the ground to connect with consumers in this time. This is a LA-based studio called Arcona. They make their own skincare. They have a studio in Beverly Hills. They also sell online and through Sephora and Nordstrom. And their owner, who's pictured in the middle, Chanel Janae, took to the airwaves early and started doing virtual skin consults, booked up all day, every day, weeks ahead, The consults themselves were free. She would meet one-on-one with the client, but they grew thousands of dollars in retail sales as a result to kind of keep the brand going. And of course, people want personal attention, as we've known since we started getting emails with our name in them. I mean, what better attention than to get the owner of the company one-on-one? So that was a great example.
Thank you.
Next, yes, the next one's in the suburbs of London. Roar Beauty and Body Artistry held virtual facial classes. And this woman was very creative. She'd send out a box ahead of time. The users paid £10 for the box, and it was sample sizes, you'll see in the picture on the left. And then they would all meet on Zoom. She would guide them through the motions of the facial. And some of us have done that in meetings, and it's kind of fun to be with your gang. And then people bought online after. She said the sales went crazy, but it also helps engender that sense of community that we were really lacking, especially early on in the pandemic.
I thought that was very clever. And I also knew somebody that was sending out a box that was costing $69. And, you know, and then she'd have lots of people on her calls. I thought, well, that's clever.
Yeah, you got to pay the rent somehow, right? This is a Philadelphia-based physician, dermatologist named Candice Heath, who has her own skincare brand. But she chose sort of that more community route and held IG Live events, which I thought were really kind of fun and made you want to join in. You would not think this was doctor-led, nothing against the doctors on the call, but it has that sort of fun and creative feel to it that makes people want to join in. So she had good success with that.
And I'll point out here that this one was also for women of color. And we're seeing more of that specifically. And I think that's it's very exciting.
Agreed, a really great specific audience to target. When we get into the wellness aspect, we saw this person, his name is Anthony Abagnano, runs breathwork classes in a company called Alchemy of Breath. And he leads retreats and events and does much of it online, some paid, some free. So you could join in and see to mindfulness and telewellness through this company. Nordstrom, U.S. department store, many of us know, very well known for their high-end approach to sales and customer service. They have a beauty trend event several times a year, which drives huge sales. They are a really popular place for cult brands and small brands. And the brand owners come and celebrity makeup artists come. But of course, they had to pivot to an online version to keep sales going, which they did. They used their loyalty program to award points for participation and for spending, right? So you had to buy in to get the products, but you got points in the Nordstrom loyalty on your Nordstrom loyalty card, which was another smart way to leverage that participation.
Thank you, Lisa. Oh, go ahead. A few fitness ones you were.
A few fitness ones. I mean, no better example than Peloton, what they've done with their digital subscriptions. Their third quarter for 2021 just ended. Their paid digital subscriptions. This is not people with connected devices that would, if you own a Tread or a Peloton bike, just paying for the apps was up 404% year over year. 891,000.
Lisa, you said third quarter, but did you mean second quarter?
No, it's their third quarter of a fiscal year, Susie.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And their connected fitness subscriptions were up 135%. Those are the people with the bikes and the treads. You may not know, but they have an amazing array of classes on demand, yoga, cycling, bar, Pilates, strength, cardio, running, walking, all lengths, all difficulties, great filtering, and they've, obviously grown hugely, and I don't expect that to stop anytime soon.
You sound like a fan the way you're talking.
I am a fan. I'm on there all the time. This was what a small company did. Planked Fitness was a boutique studio near where I live, and you would go in for your cardio and strength training, and obviously these small businesses suffered hugely, being shut down. So they converted their monthly membership fee to an online platform. You got a Zoom login, but paid to participate. And you also felt like you were working out with your crowd, like you were before. So we've learned through this, all of these ways to combine technology. We've all gotten a little more tech savvy, including our consumers, and keep it going, because the point is beauty related views on YouTube last year were 88 billion. That's billion with a B, up from 1 billion 10 years ago. So COVID accelerated a trend that was already happening, and physical brands have learned that they have to move to this experience model, which is basically living in our space of delivering services and experiences. So those of us in our industry, we know we need to embrace the digital technology, but stay true to our brand promise at the same time. I think it's a bright future. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for putting together and some examples with some great numbers behind it. And now I am delighted to introduce Dr. Alan Hamilton. He is an MD. He is at the Arizona Simulation Technology and Education Center. And Dr. Hamilton, I'm so excited to introduce you to everyone, because you are going to tell us how this whole thing began, because you're the one that informed me about where the term telehealth even started. So, Dr. Hamilton?
So it's, we have a long history. I mean, COVID jump-started everything, and we saw a 250% increase in our telehealth subscription services over the last year. But telehealth actually goes back 52 years. It started at the Massachusetts General Hospital. It was a link between Logan Airport and the emergency department at the Massachusetts General Hospital. And that was simply to help make decisions about who could get on a plane or what to do if somebody got off a plane and they were very sick. And that really is where it all started. And then it sort of moved across the whole country. And now we have these gigantic networks. One of the things that we do at the University of Arizona, we have a gigantic telemedicine program, is that we now have a telemedicine simulation suite. So we actually have medical students and residents practice talking to patients and using telehealth technology, because it's a very different set of skills than examining a patient in clinic. And I think that's, our feeling was we really want to turn out the best telehealth docs that we can. One of the, I thought I'd talk about some of the trends that I see that sort of concern me. One is we have a gigantic global disease care system, and it's going to be very hard to derail it because telehealth moves away. It's really what you call a centrifugal model. That is, it moves the services out to the patient as opposed to the patient coming to you for services. So there are two trends. One is this global profit-driven monster that we have that says, put in stents and do coronary artery bypass grafts. And then there's another model which says, no, save dollars, go with prevention, go with wellness. And somehow we have to figure out how to put the right incentives in place. And the second thing I wanted to touch on, which I think Lisa brought up, is this whole thing about we have to move away from this captain of the ship model, is what we call it, where the patient's coming to the doctor for all of the knowledge and it's being driven by the physician or the healthcare professional. This is all going to get driven by patients and their families. And so what we really need is a coaching model where we're delivering a service and we're staying connected to sort of touch base and see if we can coach and see if we can manage things and bring it where we need to bring other services in. And I think, that will be the ultimate bridge, as long as we can provide the incentives, if you will, to say, let's move away from a disease care system and move towards a healthcare system where prevention is really where the emphasis is.
Well, Alan, when we spoke, I know we were very, excited about this sort of, the future. You, however, have seen this develop. How many years have you been aware of telehealth and telemedicine?
Well, we were using telehealth in the 1980s and early 90s in the military. We've been using it ever since because we can't have docs everywhere where you have troops inserted. So using telehealth connections is a very good way to be able to project our presence. And, you know, the military is looking at vast systems of how do we get the care driven up towards where the front is, where the combat is, and move the hospitals and the evac hospitals back. So I've been involved in telehealth really since the late 80s and early 90s, but in medicine, it's just been sort of limping along. And then we got this, you know, we sort of turned into the Hulk, you know, which was with COVID. That's how I look at it. You know, we just shredded the shirt and, you know, we became the giant gorilla wandering around. And there was tremendous amount of money suddenly being pumped into the system, not necessarily everywhere where it needed to go, but it allowed us to do things like we could reach into disadvantaged communities. We could reach into First Nations where that would have been impossible earlier without a good telehealth network and the funds to do it. So I think what we're going to see is things are, you know, there is no going back to normal. There's a new normal. And, you know, somebody said, oh, well, we put COVID in the rearview mirror. And I said, no, COVID's in the back seat. It's not, you're traveling with it. So I think this is here to stay. And I think, you know, I applaud you for trying to look at where do we get to virtual wellness and how do we create a system that will support year-round in-depth coaching throughout the
Whoops. Are we back, Nancy? Hello, Nancy?
That was an air
Yes.
strike.
Yes, that was somebody
Nancy's-
came on and had their, they were unmuted.
Oh, okay.
That's not, yeah, we're not controlling that.
Okay, Alan, thank you. I love the idea. You know, it helps us to know that you who have been seeing this through the 80s, the 90s, and so on, see that COVID was the, you know, Green Hulk, because we're feeling that, but, you know, we don't know because we haven't been in it. So this whole COVID, you know, pedal to the metal kind of thing is what we're seeing, and apparently you're seeing. I also wanted to just let everyone know what I thought was so smart when I spoke with Alan is that what they did in Arizona at the university is that they realized they have to train people on how to do well with these virtual interactions. Because, you know, you always think, oh, well, you know, you're doing you know, a patient intake or whatever, and you just put it online. Well, I guess you're finding that there's better ways to do it than others, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, that you don't have the body language that you do, and you don't have the physical space issues, which we do a lot of communication through that. So you have to be able to project a different kind of presence, and you also have to be able to create a sense of trust in a different way. So we look at that. We also like to test people out on cultural differences, language difficulties, people who may have disabilities that interfere with communication through the traditional AV route. So these are all problems that we throw into the path of the students and the residents. So they have to learn how to deal with that too.
Thank you, Ellen. You're at the Arizona Telemedicine program, and clearly you guys are really ahead of the game. So I invite everyone. And by the way, at the end of this, we will send out a follow-up with everyone's contact and website. So thank you, Alan. David Weingard, you are next. You are the founder and executive chairman of Cecilia Health. And I'd like you to tell us about Cecilia Health.
Yes, thank you, Susie, and thank you all the presenters. It's great to be here. So it's interesting. I'll kind of go to the beginning and then talk to you how we evolve into telehealth and really now telemedicine. It all started for me one day when I walked into a doctor's office with no energy, stepped on a scale. I was 30 pounds lighter than I expected. And I was told that I had type 1 diabetes. I was 36 at the time. I have no diabetes in my family. I have been a runner my whole life. I had just completed an Ironman triathlon. So I was in shape. And thankfully there's insulin. I started an insulin regimen and began to rebuild my life. But I got some incredible, people have used the word coaching from a nurse who was also a diabetes educator, which is a special credential on top of the clinical certifications. named Cecilia. And she fit me into her overbooked schedule. I met with her several times, and she gave me the hope, the compassion, and the support that I needed, that I could live an empowered life with diabetes, which thankfully I have. And started to give back to the diabetes community, started to be one of the first people to do Ironman triathlons again with type 1 diabetes, and more to that story. But professionally at the time, I was with Microsoft, having nothing to do with health and wellness, nothing to do with healthcare. And I realized, why are we not using technology to scale these great clinicians like Cecilia, like many of you know and are, and really bring the access to people in need? So we started with a B2C model, and I literally reached out to these diabetes educators across the country, and I said, look, and this was about 12 years ago, I said, we need to help. There's only like 30,000 of you, and there's, as far as I can tell, about 30 million people with diabetes, and the rate's getting worse. So would you like to start joining this entrepreneurial thing? I can't pay you anything, but come on in. I'll give you some stock, and we'll go from there. And we proved that the model worked. We started helping people and changing outcomes and health, and we were still small. And so then we pivoted to be a B2B business, where we started to partner with organizations already had hundreds of thousands or millions of patients, and that include Bayer Diabetes was our first client. Weight Watchers, who was mentioned, was one of our early clients, where we focused on the overlay with their members with diabetes. And now we have pharma and med device companies who pay us to get patients initiated and persistent on their drug or device. And then we have health plans and employers that pay us to improve the quality and the outcomes, lower cost. And we do this by delivering this virtual coaching. So what does that mean for us? So, it started with maybe a phone call with a technology system. It's really evolved into what the buzzword is called omnichannel. So omnichannel means we're going to touch people in a lot of different ways, because everybody's different. So for example, we launched with a program last year. We now do diabetes, cardiovascular, and obesity. This one was around cardiovascular, and we've helped 40,000 people in 1 year. They're in a 1-year program, and we've scaled to that level in a tele model. And what we do is we using data, we segment the patients into what we call a high, medium, and low touch. So the high touch get a lot of human with low digital, the medium get a mix, and low touch is a highly digital. But we're really solving for the problem that half the people prescribed the medication, diabetes, cardiovascular, they don't even initiate or take it. So we got to help with that. And then we have to give them the behavioral support and the reinforcement and the accountability to make sure they stay on the program. So that, combined with analytics, really helps these businesses really do good in the world, as far as also economic model. We've evolved, just to bring it full circle to the telemedicine. Through the years, we realized, okay, we're helping these patients now in scale, and we're noticing certain problems with their medication, because we only use clinicians, nurses, dietitians, and pharmacists that have these advanced accreditations in diabetes, cardiovascular, obesity, and they'll notice patterns. But we weren't able to prescribe medication or adjust, so we'd have to send them back to the physicians. What would happen is the patient may or may not ever go back to the physician, no matter how much time we contact them again. So we actually took it upon ourselves a year before COVID happened to change the licensure of our company so that we can integrate a national endocrinology network, that the coaches, these clinical experts, can do 90% of the work, but they can escalate to endocrinologists, and we license across 50 states. Because if we notice patterns with someone's diabetes or cardiovascular, we can make the changes. And just imagine people, with diabetes, especially in states, there are states that only have like 3 or 4 endocrinologists in the whole state. It's unbelievable. So people have to take a day off to travel to wherever it is to meet with an endocrinologist. Now they could do it in rural areas. They can, children who are diagnosed young with juvenile diabetes, they can go to school, they could go to camp, they can go to college, they could get married, they could have the same care team no matter where they live no matter what they do. So those are some of the real world benefits of delivering the coaching and what we call telehealth or telemedicine today. It's really an enabler and opened up so much for people with chronic disease and people with, non-chronic disease.
David, thank you. You are a perfect example of, I think, this combination of, wellness and medical, and also what I think you're a great example of. I remember asking you, you said that you started this in 2009. Now, fast forward, there, it morphed. In 2009, there wasn't, all this technology, but you knew what you were doing because you had diabetes, you started, you talked to a lot of people, and then you morphed into what you have now, which is a very successful model that is truly helping people. And one thing that I would say I have learned in this, week and, diving into this is that what works is when you have authentic, valuable, knowledgeable, passionate part, and then also the technology. If you have just the technology and not people behind it that really know what's happening, that doesn't work. And if you just are passionate and are not maybe partnering or having someone help you with the technology, then you don't get to scale as much. So congratulations, and thank you for being on. And now I'm going to ask for Amnon Bar-Lev, if you are on. You are co-founder and CEO of Alike Health. And Amnon, you are in Israel. Are you there?
Yes. I'm calling from Tel Aviv.
Okay, very good. Tell us about Alike.
Okay, so Alike is quite a unique company that was founded by myself. I'm a cybersecurity expert, led one of the largest cybersecurity company in the world called Checkpoint, and Professor Vada Shalev, she's acting physician. And the whole focus of Alike was how to empower patients, but do it from the clinical side, not just from the wellness side, which is quite important. And we are taking advantage of a new regulation in the US called the 21st Century Cure Act, where actually every patient has access to his medical records. So, data is a key for revolution. And if you think about the digital revolution, whatever we do, it's all based on data. So we developed an application, and you can look at it on Google and the App Store, called Alike Health. Exactly, this is it. And the idea behind it is that in a couple of very simple steps, you connect to your provider, you get all your medical records. We, from one side, explain it to you very nicely. But we also have the ability to actually move you from population health to personal health. And the idea is to make a very small cluster of people. We do that by comparing you to a huge database that we have today. We have a database of 23 million people from Israel, UK, and US. And we have that longevity between 5 to 25 years that allow us to, for example, you can see that in this slide, you can see how people like you been treated. And people like you is not just people that suffer from diabetes. It's actually male at the age of 50 that have high BMI and also suffer from cardiological issues. So you can actually get a much smaller, well-defined cluster of people, and then can see how people like you been treated. That's one thing that empower patient. And the other,
excuse me, thank you for that. I wanted to showcase this because I thought it was unusual and different, and you're very new this year, right? To 2021?
Actually, we came up with the app at the stores like a month ago. We have more than thousands users that actually finished the onboarding. So we see that in the last 3 weeks or so, and it's picking up quite nicely.
Good.
Last thing to say is that I think what we want to do at the end of the day is to replace Dr. Google and Dr. Facebook into something that's reliable, secure, and most importantly, based on data.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And lastly, we have Ben Enash from Anecdote Health. Tell us about Anecdote. Ben, are you there? If you're not, I will tell a little bit about Ben because we spoke. He is also from Israel, And what I thought was interesting about his model is that this
Hello.
is, oh, there you are. Okay, Ben.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Tell
sorry.
tell
We were
us
just
about
muted.
anecdote. Tell
Yeah,
us about
so thanks for having us. As you can see, we're in the same room. So we're over COVID here in Tel Aviv, but we're a company headquartered in New York, and we're a B2C company. We're the first AI-based HMO for the uninsured population in the US. So what we do is we actually provide HMO services at ridiculously low prices, very good health to the uninsured population on monthly programs. David here, who's my co-founder and the chief medical officer, has a few insights on how to connect it to this session that we're having here.
Right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. So at Antidote Health, we really believe it's a basic human right to have access to proper medical care. And if you think about it, isn't access to proper medical care the basis of all wellness? And unfortunately, there are too many Americans who are lacking this basic right. And as Ben mentioned, to achieve this goal, we're really creating the first digital HMO for the un and underinsured. We've started off our journey with creating a acute and primary care clinic. And in that clinic, patients can get as many doctor visits as they need. You can onboard your whole family to get care. We cover all the costs of all the drugs of the acute and primary care medications that are commonly prescribed. You could even have, we've created a technology where you could even have a three-way visit. For example, you could have you have a doctor, a parent who is at work and might have difficulty leaving work, and a child who might be at school. And we're able to all see the physician together. So, it's much easier for the parent who might, have a difficult time leaving work. There's a lot of technology embedded there.
And let me just get to this last slide, because I thought what was very interesting about what you're doing is you are really attempting to service the very, very core group of people who are not insured in the United States at, like you said, ridiculously low rates. I mean, $49 for a visit, $29 of a monthly fee. And you
Hi, Susie. My name's Mark. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. And I think you hit it exactly perfectly. At Antidote Health, we use technology to empower and maximize doctor time. And we've done that to create a healthcare option that's so affordable that anyone can use it for the entire family, including all of the doctors, including all of the drugs. And that is with no co-pays, no hidden costs, no deductibles. And it's not that this is $49 or $59 for a doctor's visit, which would be cheap compared to a lot of people. That's for your entire family to see a doctor for any of their needs, and we'll pay for the medication. And that's really only possible because of the technology. And in fact, when we did so, we didn't realize how much of a synergy there actually was with wellness. Because we started with core focus on acute and primary care, when we did this, we started doing partnerships with wellness providers, Pilates, yoga, fitness. A lot of the people that work with us are actually providers of wellness services because it's such a cheap price. It pairs perfectly well. And they earn revenue from referring customers to us, and we're able to provide, a great service to their users who need it.
Mark, thank you. I'm going to thank you for that. And we're going to include a link to your website. Clearly, it's kind of a wow to think about being able to get medicine and doctor visits at these prices. And I know you're a new company, so we'll be watching. I want to go back to Christopher from Lumion. Christopher, tell us a little bit more about Lumion. You've been our sponsor, and I think what you're doing in workplace wellness is a huge contribution. Chris?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Susie. And it's been fantastic to hear all the other speakers as well. Really interesting things involved here. To let you know a little bit about Lumion, we've noticed a certain trend in companies over the last few years that very much well-being used to be seen as kind of an add-on thing in companies. So it used to be seen as a very kind of tick box exercise. Something you added into a company, maybe HR overlooked it, and maybe you just got through what you needed to do for legal purposes. But very much over the last few years, we've seen a total shift to the other side. And what companies are now realizing is well-being of employees needs to be an underpinning part of any company strategy. to the point that we at Lumion are on a mission to actually empower people to take control of their own well-being, and actually to have well-being as a formal part of every board meeting across the world. So we're actually on a mission to achieve that. And we want to do that by putting real data-driven structures into companies. So actually allow boards to really understand what's going on with their people so they don't burn out. We don't want companies just focused on finance.
Chris, what I thought was interesting is that, you know, workplace wellness, there's a lot of discussion about it, but it's kind of a little bit, you know, fuzzy. But yep. You are doing data so that in the boardroom, there can be numbers and there can be like, this is what your people are telling, you know, are having problems with, especially with emotional things. So I think it's brilliant. And thank you for that. And again, the link will be there. And Nancy, I want to just throw it over to you and ask you your thoughts, since we went very quickly through a lot of things.
Well, I am absolutely, I'm watching the chat and everybody is really appreciative of all of this educational seminar on this topic. And I would just say that if you're deeply interested in telehealth and telewellness, join us in Tel Aviv. I have to put a plug in. So this November in Tel Aviv, 2 of the companies have been on this call. There's so much going on in innovation and technology and health and wellness, and it will be an incredible summit and a great conversation. I also just really want to acknowledge, Susie, that with technology underpinning everything, including this call and all our calls, you have demonstrated the most grace under pressure I can imagine for someone who has had so many technical issues on this call. You are an absolute model, and I think you deserve the global love from everybody this morning.
Well, thank you, Nancy. I just thank everyone for being on the call. And I know it was kind of a hodgepodge of things, but you know, I think that's where we are with telehealth, telemedicine, and telewellness. We're at the beginning, but like Dr. Allen said, it's here to stay. And so at least those of you who are on the call, I have a feeling you already know that. So I think we should all help each other, be collaborative, and ultimately, helping people globally, empowering wellness worldwide. We can do that together. And so thank you for joining the call. And you can feel free to unmute and say goodbye to each other, and we'll send you the chat and all of the connections with the people. Thank you to my presenters who were part of it, and for being patient with my timing, which I know we never give you enough time, but at least we got to hear from all of you.
This felt like telewellness.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Good, stay healthy. Bye.